Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Andrew Ellis, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon. This afternoon, Curtis Wilkerson is out today, so it's just going to be me and Andrew today, but we're going to take you throughout all the things to talk about here on the show today. We'll get to your HD roofing and construction heavy hitters. We'll also get to a vibe checking of the chat. We'll have your Alumni Hall question of the day. We'll also tell you about some really cool things and some new sponsors that we're bringing on board. And, of course, talk about Razorback Football. We just had a chance to hear from Razorback defensive line coach Dee Adams, give you some updates and some clips from that, and to get to all the topics that you want to dive into. But, Ellis, it's Thursday, closer to the weekend, 16 days away. Mitch Mustain, Traylon Burks days away, depending on how you want to do it. How are the vibes for you?
The vibes are tremendous for me, man. I'm looking forward to it. Hillary's out of town, which, you know, I hope she has a great time in Chicago. You know, it's great, and, you know, we're going to miss her dearly, but you know, there's something special about when you get the house to yourself and you can just kind of, you know, goof off a little bit. So I'm in misbehaving mode, but I'm also in football mode, John, and I'm excited. 16 days. That's exciting. Yeah.
I mean, Saturday, it'll be 2 weeks. It seems like it's getting, it keeps moving faster and faster as we get closer and closer. By the way, is it Chi-Town or Chi-City is what they call it for Chicago? Or is it both?
I think Chi-Town.
Chi-Town. Okay. Yeah. We'll do it that then. All right. So, but either way, we're going to have plenty of things to discuss, not only for Razorback football, but also some things going on in the SEC and some funny storylines and updates from that as well. But I guess we can begin with the defensive line, as we had a chance to meet with Deke Adams today, which, you know, when Sam Pittman first got at Arkansas, he went through a few defensive line coaches. Kind of a tough thing to figure out, needless to say. Didn't have what he was looking for, whether it was Derek LeBlanc. I think it was it Jamal Ashley, I believe was one of them. And we know that didn't last. But when Deke Adams came on board, it was one that had a guy who's been in a lot of different places, coached at a lot of different SEC places, didn't really know what to make of him. Before we dive into the specifics, I'm curious, Andrew, is your thoughts on the job Deke Adams has done? Because again, Sam Pittman went through a lot, couldn't really get that position group figured out. But here we have Deke Adams entering in to what I believe is his third or fourth year, if I'm not mistaken, at least his third. But just what do you think of the job that he's done and the type of defensive lines that he's been able to put together so far at Arkansas?
Well, I remember when he got hired, and again, there was, you know, like you said, there's been a lot of turnover there, that D-line coach position. There's been several different guys. I mean, hell, even during Brett Bielema's tenure, there was a lot of turnover at the D-line coaching. It's just been a thing that has been there. You know, Arkansas had like 9 in the last decade. It's crazy. There was a point where they had an inside D-line coach and an outside D-line coach, which is nuts. But I remember when they hired Deke Adams, and, you know, I didn't know who Deke Adams was. I had to do some research, look at his resume. But I saw a guy that had been fired at multiple SEC schools, and I remember being like, holy cow, how is this the guy that they landed on? Like, this is an interesting hire, to say the least. And I remember talking to some of our colleagues in the media, and they had the same kind of opinion of like, this is an interesting hire on paper. And then if you remember those first 2 years, Arkansas's D-line was actually pretty solid. I mean, right away, I believe his first year was that year with Trey Williams, with John Ridgway and all those guys. And Arkansas was able to have a pretty solid defensive line that year. That, you know, and then you go into the year where they had Landon Jackson, they had Jordan Dominic, they had all these, you know, they had this depth on the defensive line, Terry Hampton, they had a bunch of guys they were rotating in. And I remember being very impressed and being like, wow, you know what? I ate some crow. And I was like, listen, this guy, we wrote him off completely when he first got to campus. And clearly he's turned out to be way more solid than that. Now we're getting into his tenure a little bit. And I think last year, you know, I'm not breaking any news by saying that D-line was really maybe the single weak spot of the team. You know, O-line struggled a little bit. Secondary wasn't great. But I felt like their depth up front of the defensive line was really a glaring issue. And we saw it come back to bite them in multiple games last year. The A&M game, they ran out of gas. They put in that backup D-line, and they got completely shredded. That ended up costing them that game. Felt like they ran out of gas in that Oklahoma State game where the D-line just could not get a push in the fourth quarter and overtime. You know, don't want to directly blame them there. There were some other games. I felt like Missouri, they kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter there. And so I felt like that D-line was a huge issue. And so it's not that this offseason I'm like coming at Deke Adams like, hey, you better step up, buddy. But it's just one of those things where, again, we apologized. We ate our crow and we said, yeah, you know, this was a really solid hire. And now that a couple of years have gone by and the D-line really struggled last year, I feel like this is a big year for Deke Adams and his position group to kind of show everybody we are not an issue. We've cleaned things up. We've got some depth, and especially, we always do the thing with coaches where we're like, yeah, you had success year 1 and year 2 with other people's guys, but now you got your guys. What is it going to be like? And so again, it's kind of like you said, year 4 of his tenure. It's time for him to kind of like build that depth. He has to have that, rotation of guys and that depth in the room. And it's really, again, it's the biggest question mark on the team right now as it stands today. Doesn't mean it guarantees that they're going to stink. I just think that if you look at it on paper, there are a lot of questions. And it's similar to the questions that we had about Deke Adams when he first got hired. He was able to answer those questions when he first got to Arkansas. Will he be able to answer those questions this fall? Will he be able to improve this unit and show that it's a little bit more stable than it shows on paper? Time will tell. But I entered this fall camp, and I'm kind of like, this is a make or break year. We're like, I think Arkansas, something needs to shake on the D-line. They have to show some sort of stability, or else we really have to start asking questions about the direction of the room overall.
Well, yeah, and it's about, to me, trajectory, just like with every coach. It's a matter of, are you going up or are you going down? And I think that every coach, no matter the head coach, coordinators, assistant coaches, position coach, whatever it is, every so often you will have a dip, but it's a matter of how do you bounce back from that dip. And if you look at what Deke Adams has done as a defensive line coach, not to say it's just been a plunge down low, but it's definitely kind of slowly gotten a little bit worse as years have gone on. And now this year, going into it, again, there's just going off of what we know and what we're looking at on paper and what we've been hearing about. This is a major cause for concern, is the defensive line, particularly the defensive pass rush. Because if you don't have a pass rush, it ain't going to do much for you. And you had Landon Jackson on the team last year, and he's been on the team for a few years. And it just makes me wonder, last season, when at least I was surprised how Landon Jackson came back for that final year. I thought that he was going to go to the NFL. And it just makes me look and think back to, like, if he would have gone to the NFL, what that defensive line would have been last year. And I don't think I have to think about it, because that's what we're going to see this year. It's like, all right, you can't just keep relying on Landon Jackson to be that guy. I know Cam Ball, obviously a very highly experienced player, could be really good. I know we're going to talk about Justice Boone, the transfer out of Florida. There's some other guys that are in the mix there, but it's a concerning thing to where not only just Deke Adams and what he said, but Travis Williams or Sam Pittman, any of the coaches who, when they've talked about the defensive line, it's been more about players that have not been stepping up or are not in the position that they want, more so than guys that have been really impressive. And that's what is concerning. Like, if you have a balance, I'm okay with that, where it's like, well, this guy and this guy, they need to step it up. We got to challenge them. But this guy and this guy and this guy, man, they've been awesome. Then there's at least something to be said. But right now, it just feels like there's more guys that are having to be counted on, challenged, made to be greater than what they're doing right now, than guys that they've just been blown away by, impressed by, and saying, hey, we really like this guy, and this guy's going to be a game changer this year.
Yeah, I think when you look back to last year's defensive line, if I read you the starting lineup, it was Landon Jackson on the end, Cam Ball, Eric Gregory there in the middle, and then Nico Davier out on the other end. That's a solid starting group. Like, that's a legitimate starting defensive line with a guy that's a second round pick, an all SEC guy, some experienced dudes, two, junior, a senior in the middle, and a guy, Nico, who's kind of young. That starting group was not the issue. We looked at them and we were like, hey, that's perfectly fine. You mentioned they were dependent on Landon Jackson. Dude, they were very dependent. Here's some numbers for you in terms of snap counts. On average, Landon Jackson played 53.7 snaps per game last year. Cam Ball, 46.1. Eric Gregory, 49.0. Nico, 36.2. He split a little bit with Anton Junkaj. Just for comparison, I looked at Alabama's defensive line, and this is not your father's Alabama. This is a 9-4 Alabama team. They did not have a player play over 40 snaps per game on the D-line. They did not have one single guy. Their top defensive lineman played 38 snaps per game, and you had Landon Jackson playing damn near 55. That's a unique situation. You don't see that in college football much. And so I think the big question coming into this season is, last year you were so dependent on that starting unit, and then it wound up being kind of your downfall, because by the time you got to the fourth quarter, no surprise, those guys were exhausted. Now you have guys that you basically chose not to play last year a ton. Ian Jaffard played 15 snaps per game last year. Quincy Rhodes played 21 snaps per game last year. They're basically going to have to at least double that. in terms of their output of what they're going to do. And so how will they handle that? But also, do you have depth in the room? Because now, again, a lot of the guys that weren't playing a ton last year are rising to the top, and you're implementing some transfers in there. What's that starting group going to look like? Can you get a starting group that is as solid as the starting group was last year? And then do you have anything close to the depth that you really need to have in the SEC? I think those are two very serious questions. And so the one guy that we've heard a lot about during fall camp that has really answered those questions has been Justice Boone. Because to your point, who, by the way, did you notice Trey called him Justin again?
Yes.
Another Justin Boone. And I think Deke corrected him, or he just kind of was like, "Oh, I think you had Justice Boone." Like he's the first one to say it correct, which is nice. But Justice Boone has been the guy that consistently, not so much in the spring, but really this fall, every time someone's gotten a mic, they've been like, "Hey, Justice Boone, completely, solid out there on the edge." So I mean, you have him at end, Quincy Rhodes at end, you got Cam Ball in the middle. Like there's something there you can build on. But I think, like to your point, we haven't heard a ton of the, "Oh, Ian Gerard has blown us away." In fact, we haven't heard his name at all. We haven't heard, "Oh, David Oki has blown us away." In fact, we've heard, David Oki kind of needs to turn it on a little bit. We need to see something more there. Deke Adams talked today about how he challenged Phillip Lee and challenged Ken Talley, challenged some of those guys to be a little bit more physical and kind of rise to the occasion. So it seems like they understand the assignment. Like everything we're saying, it's not like Deke Adams has no clue of like, "Oh, yeah, I only need a few defensive linemen." He understands he needs 7, 8, 9 guys that he can really count on. It seems like they're in the process of figuring that out. But some of these guys just got on campus. I mean, Justice Boone, when he was in the spring, we didn't hear much about him. So maybe it's just the same for Phillip Lee and some of these other guys that just got to campus. Maybe by the time we get to September, October, we'll feel a little bit differently. But I don't think it's any secret. It's the worst kept secret of all time. The Arkansas Razorbacks are a little bit concerned about their defensive line.
Yeah, just ever so slightly. And we'll play the clip about Justice Boone because, again, he's kind of been the guy. But you're bringing up the snaps and everything and the amount that Landon Jackson all them played. Because that's another thing, too, is some people may try to throw in the variable of like, "Oh, well, okay, but, what did the offense do? Is how many times were they on the field?" It's like, Arkansas's offense actually wasn't too bad at, third down conversions last season. In fact, they were one of the best teams in the SEC at third down conversions. So not to say there was no 3 and outs, but it wasn't this thing to where the offense was just constantly giving the ball back to the other team. And that's what caused them to play so many snaps. It was just that's what was required, considering where everything was at. So, but we'll talk about that, and we'll, again, hear a little bit about Justice Boone. But pretty excited because I want to announce to everybody that we have a new sponsor here at Inside Arkansas, and we're very thankful for that. It's our friends over at Walter Christmas Lighting here in the Northwest Arkansas, as well as the River Valley. As we get closer to the holiday season, we know Halloween's just around the corner. If some of you crazy kids out there like to decorate your house and light it up, well, it's a lot of work and probably something that you don't want to do. So that's okay. You got professionals at Walter Christmas Lighting that's going to have you covered this fall as well as into the wintertime. They are the ones that are going to install it, set up your house with all the professional lighting, with all materials provided, any color, any pattern that you want. They install the lights themselves. You get free maintenance throughout the holiday season. And they also do the takedowns down over in January. And one of the best deals they have going on right now is that if you sign up for Halloween lighting right now, you will also get Christmas lights for 50% off. You're not going to get a better deal than that. So text our guy, Brett, for a free estimate over at 479-459-1380. That's 479-459-1380. You can also check out their Facebook page, which is the QR code right there on your screen, or walterchristmaslighting.com. It's Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas, your local holiday and lighting experts. So getting into a little bit about the Justice Boone side of things. Here's Deke Adams and what he had to say about Justice Boone and the progress that he's made overall.
Well, he's played in this league before, at his previous school. And so he does a really good job. He's a physical kid. He works really, really hard. And he understands whatever his limitations are, he understands those and he works through them. But he plays hard, he works hard, and he's a great kid as well. One of the things I've always wanted to do is just, have great kids in the room because in this business so much, we're away from families and all this stuff so much. You want to be around good kids as well as good players. And he's both. And he's working hard, man. He's playing physical and all that. So I'm happy with him.
And
I mean, again, like nothing over the top about what he said, but I think that's at least what maybe a lot of people are counting on and things that they know is, hey, this guy is a transfer from Florida. He's a guy who played at Florida and he's played in the SEC. And he's had some experience. He is a redshirt senior, so I believe this is his final year of college eligibility. But, that's kind of all the things that you've been wanting to count on is just knowing that because I believe he's a 4-star coming out of high school, so highly regarded, highly recruited. Having that experience there at Florida, you're just hoping that maybe with the right coaching, the right opportunities, he can kind of step up and be that guy. But it seems like at least with Deke Adams, he likes what he's seen, not only for him on the field, but also what he's looked like in the locker rooms and in the film rooms and everything like that too.
Yeah, I mean, Justice Boone, I'm not saying he's the greatest transfer portal addition of all time, but he is the exact kind of guy that you have to identify and target in the transfer portal if you want to have success. Because again, we all know how hard it is to accumulate talent on your football team. We understand it's hard to go to some of the best players in the country and be like, hey, come play for us. And then they're like, all right, how much is the money? I understand it's hard, but Justice Boone is kind of the perfect microcosm of like what you need to do in this day and age of college football. Because like you said, former big time recruit who, has played in the SEC a good bit, has a track record of experience at a legitimate program like Florida, has played for 2 different coaching staffs and has gone through an injury, has come back from an injury. Like, he's kind of dealt with all the ups and downs that you need to, that a guy can face in the SEC. And now you're getting him as a senior, as an adult. He's now healthy. Now, he's got an SEC body already. It's not like he's coming to Arkansas and they've got to do all this work and they've got to develop him. They've got to get him. They've got to add 10 pounds to his frame. He's played in the SEC. He knows what it's like. Now he's motivated. He's at a new spot. Maybe a change of scenery will be good for him. That's the exact kind of guy you want to bring in. And, John, you made a great point yesterday where you were like, that 2022 transfer class with Jaden Hazelwood, with Matt Landers, with Latavius Brini, Drew Sanders. When those guys came to Arkansas, we didn't have questions of like, well, is Drew Sanders going to be able to help him? Is Matt Landers? Because we knew, we just kind of knew these guys have production. They've played at a high level before. Let's just see if they do it at Arkansas. And Justice Boone, I don't know if he's quite on that level, but there's not a ton of mystery. When a guy's already played in the SEC, I think that means something. And it's good to hear that from Deke Adams, because you can tell that they've kind of gotten what they thought they were going to get out of Justice Boone. And, I remember when he committed, I remember talking to some guys from Florida who felt like, hey, this is a guy with untapped potential. It hasn't really worked out, but I think everyone there kind of knew this guy has the potential to be a good football player. So seems like they got a big win, there, and I think that's huge because again, you have a lot to replace. I think that's cool. I also love that he said, as a father, when you want to be around good kids, because as a coach in fall camp, not a ton of family time going around, and his son is old. His son is played the MLB for a little bit, so he's got a good track record as a father as well. I love that he's like, man, you want to be around some good kids, and he feels like Justice Boone is that.
No, it is awesome. That is awesome. And we talked about the pass rush part of it too, trying to find if somebody can be the replace of Landon Jackson, or at least be able to get after the quarterback, because we know that's what's going to come down to. He was asked about Deke Adams, that is, about the pass rush specifically, and how it's been improving, or at least how it's been coming along in fall camp, and what steps it needs to take to get it better.
Well, you got to win one-on-ones. I don't care who you are. If I put you on the field and you're in a one-on-one situation, I expect you to win. And that's how you separate yourself, because rarely do you set things up where guys just totally come free and all that. So when you're in a situation where you're in a one-on-one situation, you got to be able to win that rep. And we talk about that all the time. And, I need guys that are going to be physical, that are twitchy, that can run, that's explosive, that got great hips and all that. And we got that in our group. It's just a matter of those guys continue to develop, because some of them have never played in this league. And once again, it's different. I don't care what anybody say. I've been in a lot of leagues. It's different. And so they are, we have it in a room. It's just, hey, they're continuing to grow.
So I thought it was fascinating that he just kind of throws it out there of a simple way, which I don't think is a bad thing, but just a simple way of like, hey, I expect you to win these one-on-one matchups. And that's what it's going to come down to, is these one-on-one matchups. Because right now, at least, not to say it'll never happen, but right now, I just don't see any team going up against Arkansas and the offense being like, all right, well, hey guys, this defensive lineman over here, this DN, a lot of times we're going to have to double team him because he's going to win those one-on-ones every single time. You just don't really have that. So more often than not, if not in every case, anytime that you have guys coming off the edge, it's always going to be just one-on-one against the tackles. Tackles in the ends, it's going to be one-on-one. So you have to win those battles. And then when you win those battles, and if you continue to win those battles, then people are going to start taking notice, which is going to make those guards or whoever, or the running backs, whoever they have to chip off of you, to be able to make it to where you have guys there that can double off, which is going to open up somebody else. So, people may hear that and be like, well, duh, yeah, winning one-on-ones. But to me, yes, winning the one-on-ones is what can just change the entire complexity of everything. And as long as you are being known, or at least being a threat of the player, that, hey, of all the one-on-ones you're going to have, if you're winning most of them, you're going to be a threat, and you're going to be people that pay attention to you a lot on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science, and it's not groundbreaking, but it is absolutely true. Like, that's what football is. It's a game of matchups, games of one-on-ones, and I think that's kind of part of the message Deke was conveying in his press conference, is kind of challenging his group of, hey, we know these guys that we have in the two deep. Some of them have been here before, most of them have not. Don't have a ton of track record to speak of. Whereas last year, again, Arkansas had a guy, of an all SEC guy coming back, who demanded some of that attention that you were talking about, which kind of changes things. The slate is clean. There is no guys circled on the depth chart, no guys circled in the game plans. And so it's up to these guys. It's up to Quincy Rhodes to become that guy that teams have to kind of look at and say, holy cow, Arkansas has this junior that's 6'6", 250 and just looks like a monster. We have to defend this guy. Like, it's up to these guys to kind of create that havoc themselves. And that's what pass rushing is. It's literally a one-on-one battle for the most part. Can you get by that left tackle? Can you get by that right tackle? And there's not a ton of production in the room to speak of throughout their careers. But again, like that's kind of the challenge. And it's that simple. If you win those battles, you're going to play. And so, you mentioned with Phillip Lee and some of those other guys that he's trying to challenge to match that physicality. That's pretty much all there is to it. And so I don't have any problem with him saying that, because, I mean, it is kind of the situation. You just have to go out there and win those battles and win them consistently. And I like that, he spoke earlier in the press conference, I don't know if you had the clip or not, but about the offensive line and how he thinks Arkansas does have a better offensive line. And he's like, this is a perfect time for you to show, like, we're in camp right now. This is an SEC offensive line. We think Arkansas has at the least an average SEC offensive line. Go out there and beat Corey Robinson. If you can beat Corey Robinson, you can play on Saturday. It is that simple.
Yeah, in fact, I do want to bring up that part of the offensive line, but before we do, just part of your Alumni Hall question of the day, presented by our friends at Alumni Hall, the #1 Razorback shopping experience. We're going to be live there the Friday before the Razorback game against Alabama A&M, so August 29th. We'll be there live from 12 to 2 at I just missed the address on this one, 3417. I wanted to say 1317. I was like, that's not right, because that might be my address, but no, 3417 North College Avenue is where we're going to be. You can also shop them online at InsideArkansas.com/Alumni All. Use that promo code HOGSBY20 for 20% off your purchase, as they got all the new Razorback apparel for football season coming in. Just a simple question of who do you think is going to lead, which defensive lineman is going to lead the Razorbacks in sacks this season? Because we know Landon Jackson was that guy last year. Had the choices of Quincy Rhodes, Justice Boone, Phillip Lee, or other, just, given the circumstances of where it's at. Overwhelmingly, 68.5% of you said Quincy Rhodes would be the guy leading the way. Justice Boone at 21%, Phillip Lee at 7%, and then 3.5% says other. So I think people are pretty high on Quincy Rhodes. I think it's going to be Boone or Rhodes if I was just going to have to pick one, but just, I don't know where it stands right now. Just hearing the stuff about Boone and being hopeful for it, I feel like he might be the guy that ends up leading them in sacks this year.
Yeah, I'm tempted to go with Justice Boone. I think if Quincy Rhodes leads Arkansas in sacks, I think that would be a very positive development. And I do want to give Quincy Rhodes a lot of credit, because I feel like he was a bright spot last year on the D-line, of a guy that we looked at and we said, hey, there's something here. There's something they can build on. And now he's entering year 3. He looks like an absolute monster. I mean, I think you were there that day when we saw him at Baum. And he's just standing around the concourse, and you're like, holy cow. Like, if we're just getting off the bus, Quincy Rhodes would be my pick. And I do think he's gonna improve. I think he had 1 sack last year. I imagine he's gonna double. He's gonna improve on that. I'm going Justice Boone as well. I mean, not like he has this crazy track record of success, although he does have a few sacks in his career. I think this is I think you're getting a senior who has an SEC body. He's motivated as hell. I don't know what that number is going to be, but I'm leaning Justice Boone just based on everything we've heard. But it would certainly not hurt my feelings if Quincy Rhodes kind of stepped up and was that go-to guy that you had to look for on third downs.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, too, it just started making me think, like, over the past decade, 10 years, so since, like, 2015, I mean, who's been the best defensive line pass rusher Arkansas has had? I mean, has it been Landon Jackson?
I would say so. I think he had 6.5 sacks in his junior and senior years. Like, that's 13 over the course of 2 years. Like, that's probably the answer. I mean, hell, Jordan Dominic was really good off the edge in 2022. But really, their best pass rusher, to your point, has been Drew Sanders, who is not a defensive lineman. Outside of that, I mean, I'm trying to think. There has to be someone that we're missing here.
Yeah, because even like a Sosa Agim was like fine, but I wouldn't consider him to be one of the best.
I was surprised. I was looking at the school records for sacks the other day, just because I wanted to see. For those that were curious, Landon Jackson finished 11th on that list with 16 career sacks at Arkansas specifically. And I was surprised to see Sosa Agim above him. He was in the top 10. He had 17.5 career sacks, because he felt like a guy that we really had the highest of hopes for.
Yep.
And not to say he didn't live up to it, but he was a good SEC player that somehow did underachieve because of how high we had the expectations for.
Yeah. I mean, and because even guys that, I'd have to go back and look at their numbers, but I always felt like they were good at it. But like a Jonathan Marshall, I don't know if he just led the team in sacks or anything like that. But I just remember it felt like he may have been decent at it, but I don't know why I felt that way.
Who was that one guy? It was Chad Morris's. Oh, Armand Watts is who it was.
Yes,
Armand Watts. You remember that random 2018 season when Armand Watts just rattled off 5 or 6 sacks?
Yep.
I see Evan saying Dietrich Wise. Dietrich was 2015 his senior year.
Yeah, it's 15 or 16. So yeah, you might be able to count
Probably
him.
the answer to this question because he's had a hell of a career in the pros. Dietrich was a weird one because early in his career he only played on third down. He was such a good pass rusher, but early in his career that's all he did was rush the passer. So it's kind of weird that he finally evolved into a legitimate 3-down defensive lineman. But early in his career it was we only saw him on 3rd and 11 against Johnny Manziel and stuff like that.
Yeah. He finished his year in 2016 was his last year. So yeah, that would definitely count. But that's definitely into the mix, I think. And going back to the Armand Watts thing, I'm pretty sure he played in the NFL for a good bit. And I'm pretty sure he was
for sure.
Was he a guy that I think came in as an offensive lineman but switched to D-line? I feel like
possibly, but he was also a dude that, he just did not play for his first 3 years on campus. I think he played a little bit as a redshirt junior. And so when he came out of camp that year and they were like, "Hey, Armand Watts is the best defender we have." I'm like, "What? Where did that happen?" And it was kind of similar with Jonathan Marshall. He didn't play a ton until his final year at Arkansas. And then, like you said, these guys are not necessarily expert pass rushers, but I think Armand Watts, he might still be playing NFL football. He was last year.
Yeah. I feel like he's playing for the Vikings. I could be mistaken by that, but either way, they've had a few good ones, but let's go ahead and jump into the chat presented by our friends over at Basis Health, where they are changing the way healthcare is delivered by providing mobile medical visits to the comfort of your very own home. A doctor will come to your home for urgent care, primary care, IV hydration, and so much more. It's Basis Health. They're here for you when and where you need them the most. You can learn more at basishealth.org today. All right, so getting into some of your chats. Appreciate you all tuning in with us. Appreciate the super chats, too, from Smitty. I like this. He says, paid inside Arkansas sports gambling. Quincy Rhodes Jr. over 10 sacks for the season.
10 sacks.
Okay, listen, because I think we did this, Andrew. We looked at the players in Arkansas just of the in the 2000s and further. So past 25 years, that's had double-digit sacks in a single year. And it's literally 3. I
can't think of that many people that did it because Flowers never did it. I don't think Dietrich ever did it.
So no, Dietrich did it. So Jake Beckett did it one year. He had right at 10. Drew Sanders did it there. And I want to say Jamal Anderson was the other one. I'm pretty sure.
About 06 range.
Yeah, I think he had 11. But still, point is it's very rare. So if Quincy Rhodes gets over 10 sacks this season, the Razorback defense stepped up and had a really nice year. Unless he gets 6 sacks in one game against Alabama A&M, and then maybe not. But
that would certainly be something. Just curious, by the way, I was compiling some career numbers. So Cam Ball in his 4 seasons at Arkansas has 3 sacks total. Quincy Rhodes has 1 sack in 2 seasons. Justice Boone has 2 sacks in 3 seasons at Florida. Ian Driffard and Danny Saili have not recorded a sack. Those are likely your top 5 defensive linemen right there. So for one of these guys to get 10, I think that would be certainly pretty notable. I want to give Curtis and I credit because last year when we did a stat projection podcast, kind of projecting who were some of these things, we talked about Landon Jackson and we were like, could Landon Jackson get 10 sacks? He's coming off a year where he had 6.5. And we said no. We were like, he's going to have, he'll have a nice year. He might even have more than 6.5. He ended up exactly at 6.5. But we were like, he's not quite going to have 10. And I'm glad that we didn't project and be like, he's going to do it. 10 sacks.
Yeah, well, I guess I was corrected. I was rounding up. Drew Sanders only had 9.5 sacks. So I guess
depending on the site you look at, some sites, because some sites don't do the half sack thing. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing is I'm looking at ArkansasRazorbacks.com, and they would fudge the numbers to 10 if they could. But even they put 9.5. But also I didn't realize this too, because if that's the case, Chris Smith had 9.5 sacks in 2012. I did not I knew he was really good. And he also had 8.5 sacks the year before. So again, I knew Chris Smith was good, but I guess I really didn't realize how many sacks he was able to have. But yeah, Jake Beckett had 10. And then Jamal Anderson had 13.5 in 2006. That's insane. Wow. That's insanity. And and then a couple other players. The record, though, is 14 by Stephen Conway and Henry Ford in 93 and 95. But the point
the
is,
guy who
like,
invented the 9-to-5 had 14 sacks.
Yep. Can you believe that? Like, it's
what a legacy that guy left.
Man. And he's like, what are we doing in our lives? He's over here just getting it done on the field and off the field. Razor Hog, appreciate the super chat. Says, John, do we have an update on Chipgate? If this is what if this is what I assume it's about, no, there's no update. There was just a certain video yesterday with a press conference that had a guy eating, or the sound of someone eating during the press conference of Marcus Woodson. So I don't know who it was, but I'm sure we can narrow it down at some point in time of who it was. Let's see. Also, Hickory Hawk says, is it the D-line issues, or should Mike Washington be the Heisman favorite? What's more likely to happen this year?
I didn't realize it until I read this from Hickory Hog. We now have because we do this every year in fall camp where one position group or player dominates, and we start doing the thing of, well, are they good, or are they who they're facing bad? If Mike Washington doesn't start hot, we're going to be doing that, where we're like, well, Mike Washington actually sucks, but the D-line just also sucks, and that's what happened. That's what'll be happening if he doesn't if he gets locked up week 3.
Yep. That's exactly what's going to happen. Especially, like, he has to come out hot against Alabama A&M and Arkansas State and all that. He better be firing on all cylinders, because if we don't see anything from him in those 2 games, talking about Mike Washington, that is, it's just going to be like, okay, well, then how am I going to sit here and expect him to do this against Ole Miss or Notre Dame or whoever? So that would be because that's the thing about Jaquinta Jackson is we already had a great feeling about him last year. And then in those games against bad teams, he just wrecked them. So it's like you want to see your best players wreck the bad teams and have big days. You want to see that in the beginning. Let's see. Trey R says, it's hard for me to put all the blame on these coaches if we do not have the NIL to compete with getting great guys. That's hard on the coaches. It does fall on their shoulders, but some on Hunter Yurachek. I mean,
so I guess this is a reference to Deke Adams in the D-line room and kind of having questions about the job he's done. And listen, this is fair, but at the same time, if you look at Arkansas's roster, it's not like it's like this at every position. It's not like every single position group the cupboard is bare. Like, they've had no issue finding several quality guys at linebacker. They've had really, I know they've had some turnover. They've been able to find guys at receiver. They've been able to find guys on the O-line. They've been able to find running backs. They have a quarterback in Taylor Green. It's like, it's not like they just can't. I mean, hell, even the secondary, they brought in a ton of transfers who have experience playing in the SEC, guys that have played, and had notable careers elsewhere. We'll see how good the secondary is, but they've generated some depth at other positions. D-line, and I know D-line might be the hardest position to do it at, has just kind of been the outlier, especially with this particular roster. And so we can feel sorry for Deke Adams all we want, but he's got other coaches on his staff that are going out there and getting depth. And so it's like, everyone's kind of got to do their own thing.
Yeah, and also too, it's like, this is the job that they signed up for, and it's one thing if it's just you have bad players, or if you can't get any players or anything like that, but it's just a matter of also too, the guys that are staying on, the guys that you are developing. It's about those guys taking next steps too, and I just don't know if that's the case. But I'm also not going to feel sorry for these guys, because again, this is their job. Their job is to be great, and if it's the U of A or administration that's not providing them the means that they need, which I believe there is a lot of truth to that, then yes, that's definitely a factor. But it's not no excuses, man. It's just like, this is the job you signed up for. You're getting paid a lot of money, and you got to find a way to get it done. Plain and simple. Also, those band geek says, does it seem like he is a good coach but bad recruiter? Talking about Deke Adams.
Yeah. So this I feel like is a very fair question and a fair point. Because I think. You look at what he's done as a D-line coach at Arkansas. I mean, hell, Landon Jackson, you remember when he got to Arkansas, he was not this guy that had this long track record of success. In fact, he was coming off of an ACL tear and was kind of a guy that was like, oh, he's a big athlete, but has he really done anything? He developed him. His first year at Arkansas, he had, I think, 2 or 3 sacks. Then he has 6.5, all SEC guy. And then he took another step as a senior. Like, that's a legitimate development track record that Deke Adams can go and show to recruits and stuff. Cam Ball's another guy that has just kind of quietly developed over the course of 4 or 5 years. Quincy Rhodes, another case of a guy that's just developed over the course of 2 or 3 years. And so it's not like Deke Adams is just this incompetent coach that can't develop talent. He's actually shown on several occasions with some of these guys. I mean, John Ridge was another guy they got a lot of production out of, that maybe you weren't expecting when he first got to campus. But it's just the depth. It's just the creating an overall room they haven't really been able to do. And so I think that's actually a fair assessment, those band geeks.
Yeah, because it's about, certain coaches have kind of been known for more of their X's and O's in development. Some coaches are just better at recruiting. That was all. And that I'm okay. I'm going to use this as an example to get on a little bit of a high horse here. But this was the thing that always would piss me off about the revisionist history people had of Bobby Petrino when he was the head coach at Arkansas, is that they were just like, oh, the recruiting, he wasn't a good recruiter. It was this, that, he got lucky with this, but the recruiting was really falling off, blah, blah, blah. And it was just not a factual statement. Like, again, people may have their revisionist history, but let's be honest. Those players, some of these players we just mentioned were Bobby Petrino players. Trey Flowers was a Bobby Petrino player. Jeremy Sprinkle was one. Keon Hatcher was one. Brandon Allen was one. Jonathan Williams was one. Travis Swanson, Bray Cook. Those guys were on there. Mitch Smothers, I don't know if we bring him up, but he was one of those guys. And also some of the wide receivers that may have gotten kicked off the team, but that we're going to be set up for that. But Marquell Wade, but even a guy like, what was it? The guy that played for the Chargers for a while, Javonte Herndon, wide receiver, where you're just like, yeah, he played in the NFL. Tevin Mitchell. So I bring up all those examples because sometimes, not using Petrino example, but sometimes we just try to have a revisionist history if a coach left or if a coach. That's like saying Brett Bielema was a bad recruiter. I think Brett Bielema was a really good recruiter overall in his staff. They did a really good job. Now, did they miss on some guys? Did they maybe not have enough? Was there other reasons? Sure, but I just always feel like that's kind of a dumb thing of looking at it. And even we've talked about it. As much as Chad Morris sucked, that guy, they had recruited really well. I mean, that's what's crazy. And that shows you how bad of a coach he was. Even when he had the talent, he couldn't do anything with it. But let's not just sit here and pretend that anytime a coach gets fired or anytime a coach just doesn't have success, or if you don't like him or whatever, you just try to be like, well, he wasn't that good of a recruiter anyways. Like, no, look at what they produced and look at what they did. And that would always just bug me when people talked about Petrino that way, where they're like, oh, you got Wilson in the wide receivers, but it was teetering off. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. They were going to still be relative and still be really good.
And then honestly, like, the stakes are just so high at this level where it's like you can be a great recruiter and then you have one class that sucks, and that might be your undoing. And you think about Brett Bielema, because I agree. I mean, Brett Bielema, his first class at Arkansas in 2013 with Hunter Henry, Alex Collins. I know some of those guys were, maybe going to go to Arkansas or whatever, but like that was a big time class that he kind of built that whole era off of in combination with some of those guys that Bobby had left over. But when it started to fall apart for Brett Bielema, they had some missed evaluations on the O-line and D-line, and it really just caught up to him, where his final year, they just didn't have the dudes. I worry that this is kind of what's happening at Arkansas now, is that, hey, yeah, it's not like Sam Pittman's been a horrible recruiter that hasn't done anything, but they've had some missed evaluations on the O-line and the D-line, and that's usually what happens when you get fired, is you're not able to compete on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And so, again, there's just a lot of pressure for some of these guys that they brought in, these transfers. It's like Phillip Lee just has to produce. Justice Boone has to produce. Ken Talley has to produce. Danny Saili, Ian Jafar, like, they have to produce. And so it's kind of it's an unfair game, because you can do so much good work as a coach, but you have to keep doing it year in and year out. And so sometimes it's not even really about the capability. It's just like you whiff on a couple guys. That's you can't really do that at this level.
Yeah, because it's tough to, in a perfect world, yes, would you like to have a position coaches that are amazing at recruiting and amazing at developing and all of that? Duh, everyone would, but it's just a dime a dozen, because there's if those coaches usually work their ways up pretty quickly and become head coaches one day. It's just the way it is. But like, I think back to the Brett Bielema days. That staff he assembled his first year was insane. If you really, if people remember that staff Brett Bielema assembled, especially on defense, Charlie Partridge was your defensive line coach, who ended up being a head coach and had a lot of success. Your defensive coordinator was Chris Ash, who ended up being the DC at Ohio State, winning a title and becoming head coach at Rutgers, which I know didn't work out, but still highly regarded. Randy Shannon was your linebacker coach. I mean, those are the types of things to where if I was a head coach, and I know I'm not, and I'm never going to be, but if I was a head coach, I would almost look at the defensive side of the ball of like, I'm just going to get, if I had to choose one, give me the guys that can recruit. Just give me the guys that can recruit at the highest level. Because to me, defense, almost more often than offense, if not entirely more often than offense, is just about having those individual high-level talents more so than the scheme, or if you're doing the, are you doing the 3-3-5? No, it's about just having dudes, because that reference that we always make to that 2010 or 2014 defense that was so good for Arkansas, it wasn't the scheme that Rob Smith put together that just made them incredible. Give them some credit, but it was because you had Trey Flowers and Dietrich Wise and Darius Font. You had dudes. So to me, that would be my number one priority of defensive coaches and hires. Get the ones that can recruit at the highest level, and then we can figure out the scheme and everything at the end of the day. But if you just, because right now, like we're talking about defensive line, Andrew, and talking about D linemen and D ends. Imagine if Arkansas just had, they went to the portal, like, got to recruit big time defensive end. What that one player makes the entire difference on the team. So to me, that's what should always be the focus as a coach and as a defensive staff is recruiting over development. Development matters, but give me the recruiters instead. I think those are the ones that are going to make the biggest difference.
Well, and if you don't go out and recruit dudes, you have to create dudes. And so I think what the situation with this D line is, there's just a lot of pressure now on, you went out and got Justice Boone, who might be a guy for you, might be a starter for you. But it's not like you went out and got that portal class of D linemen that's just going to carry you like it's done for them in past years. So now Quincy Rhodes, you have to turn him into a dude. You have to turn Ian Jaffrard into a dude. You have to turn Danny Saili into a dude. Charlie Collins. I mean, the list goes on. And so it's there's just a lot of pressure to put on your own development as a coach.
That's right. We'll get to more of your chats and more discussion here on the show, folks. But I want to remind everybody that we're brought to you by our friends at Hickey and Hull Law, because we know that divorce and custody cases are far too important to try and face alone. But so are every cases, like criminal cases, civil litigation cases, personal injury cases, estate planning cases. All of these things, they are crucial to you and they are important to you. So those who are representing you, you want them to feel that it's just as important to them. And that is what Hickey and Hull Law is all about, because they are about that strong relationship with the attorneys and the clients. And they pride themselves on building those relationships because they know that every case that they take is important and they strive to give each one the utmost care and time that it deserves. Hickey and Hull Law offices across the state of Arkansas, they have them in Arkansas, in Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Little Rock, and Mena. As we were laughing yesterday, Curtis may have stopped by the Mena one, but luckily he didn't. Says that would have been a tough thing for Lady Michelle to have to deal with. That was the case. But don't worry, he didn't. But if you need that, 479-434-2414 is the number to call. 479-434-2414. You can also check out their website at hickeyandhull.com. It's Hickey and Hull Law. Things are about to get better. Okay, so a few of your chats to continue to get into this, because again, we appreciate everybody tuning in with us. We'll have our heavy hitters here in just a little bit. I'm just going to assume, I know you started this, Andrew. I'm going to assume this guy's trolling. I'm hoping that's the case, because I'm tired of this topic of Landon Jackson being underwhelming last year. We have to stop it. Please be trolling. Please be sarcastic, because we're not even going to take this seriously if people start saying this again.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the whole Landon Jackson bit again, because we've been doing it every day, and I was on the Discord yesterday. They were yelling at me about that as well. I'm just gonna remind everyone, you can feel that way, and that's perfectly fine. Phillip Lee is kind of the exception here because he had 5 sacks last year at Troy, and so he's kind of the exception. But if you take out Phillip Lee and you put the entire D-line room together, they do not have career sacks that amount to what Landon Jackson had in sacks last year. And it's the same number, 6.5, that he had the year before. I just read off some of the numbers, like Cam Ball. If we love Cam Ball and we think Cam Ball is the greatest player of all time, he had 1.5 sacks last year. And I know he's a defensive tackle. It's a little bit different job, and sacks aren't the end-all, be-all or whatever. But it's like, for everyone that's like, man, Landon Jackson, what a disappointment. It's like, well, then how would you describe literally the rest of the D-line room? Because the entire D-line room does not have the production and track record that he has. They also are not going to be drafted in the second round like he was. Like, I don't know, man. It's just interesting how we frame things. When guys are at Arkansas, they're like the most great thing of all time. And then as soon as they leave Arkansas, whether it's for transfer or the draft, we're like, man, that guy actually kind of sucked.
Yeah. Again, people just make things up. And it goes back to the revisionist history that we were talking about. Yeah. Just revisionist history of players or coaches or whatnot. I get if it didn't live up to your expectation, then it's one of two things. Either one, you had way too high of an expectation, or two, you didn't even pay attention to the games. Like Landon Jackson, that's how I feel. If you felt like last year he was underwhelming, you either had way too high of an expectation or you just didn't watch the games and you just didn't pay attention. It's one of the two things.
Well, I've heard that underwhelming and overrated a lot. And I see him, he followed up now and he says that Landon was drafted based on potential. I think he was drafted because he was a 2-time All-SEC guy who consistently, beat guys in the SEC. He had 5.5 sacks in 8 SEC games last year. That is production. And he checks all the boxes, measurables. Like, you don't get just drafted because they're like, oh, this guy's big, maybe he can be good. It's like, he was a 2-time All-SEC guy. Like, he was a 4-star recruit who played at 2 different SEC schools, had a lot of success. Like, his career, like, everyone else would look at Landon Jackson's career and be like, man, that's a really good college career. Of course he was drafted. Like, that makes sense. I don't know how Hog fans look at that and they're like, yeah, this guy was a bust. I don't know, man. I didn't see it.
Yeah, and again, it's not all Hog fans, but just some people, because you see that Tucker says kind of what my point is. Like, if Landon Jackson was underwhelming last year, just wait for the D-line this year. Yeah, that might be one of the greatest examples, which we hope that they do well. But if they're struggling a lot, then a lot of you are going to understand the importance of having Landon Jackson, but also to the potential thing. It's not like he was an 18-year-old one-and-done player. Like, oh, it's an NBA, yeah, but potential. He was a fifth-year senior in the SEC. It's like, it's not at that point in time. The NFL is part of it potential, yes, but they're not drafting someone like Landon Jackson on potential. They're like, this dude's got 5 years. We're drafting him because we want him to play right now. We want him to be an impact like right now, not like, we'll work with him. And then, maybe 4 or 5 years down the road when he's 32, then he'll finally be able to come through. Like, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So also to see, I had another comment here that wanted to bring. Oh, this comes from Hogblitz. Says, hey, John, when you have a head coach that specializes in a certain position group and that group continues to be an issue, you have an inept head coach. I can probably put 2 and 2 together and assume that you were talking about Sam Pittman and the offensive line and everything. And here's the deal is I get this take. I do. I think everybody can agree that when Sam Pittman was hired, if I told you going into year 6 of Sam Pittman, a lot of you would probably be like, oh man, he must have won 10 games a couple of years. Didn't do that. But still, going into year 6, if I would have told you that one of the inconsistent, or in some cases, and in some years, the worst part of the team was the offensive line, I don't think anybody would believed it. It just doesn't seem like a reality. Now, does that make him inept as the rest of the head coaching thing? I think there's so much more that goes into it. It's definitely a concern. But my thing with Sam Pittman, and I think maybe the most glaring issue that I've had with Sam Pittman as a head coach, and you can disagree, Andrew, has just been game management in a lot of cases. Timeouts, understanding certain situations, knowing when to take risk and when not, because there's been times he's taken risk and I've fully been on board with it. I love the fact, and no matter what, I don't care what the situation is, if you are on the road in the SEC and you score at the very end of the game and you can kick an extra point to tie it, or you can go for 2 to win it, I'm all about going for 2 to win it. I'm like, they did that against Ole Miss, did that against Missouri. Didn't work out one, did work out the other, but we don't need to get into that. The point is, I like rolling the dice. I like the special teams fakes that he's done that have been really fun. But sometimes you can kind of tell of, the I didn't know what to do situation. Like, those are the things that I feel like has maybe cost him a little bit more, because I'm going to go deep into this, Andrew. When you hear those things, because I know we hear it as fans, we hear it in the media, but when you hear those things as a player, suddenly you start to lose a little bit of confidence in your head coach. The assistant coaches are like, man, you said you didn't know what to do. Like, you lose a lot more than just, I had a brain fart in the moment. Like, you start to lose a lot of people's confidence in you. And I feel like that may have played a part into some of the things, one of the many things that played a part into maybe what Sam Pittman's had to go through.
Yeah, and Hogblitz, I want there to be no misconception here. If Arkansas's O-line struggles this season, Sam Pittman will lose his job.
Yep.
Like, it's just 100% point blank. It is that simple. Because I think, again, coming off a year, because they fired Cody Kennedy at the end of the 2023 season, now you have a new lease on life a little bit. That was kind of your scapegoat. And by the way, I think it was a fair scapegoat. I mean, I think did he already get fired at Mississippi State? Did I make that up?
Yeah, he got fired.
He got fired again. Okay, so it's like, I think if the O-line goes back to being above average and they're pretty solid this year, it'll be a lot easier for us to look back and say, okay, maybe that was a Cody Kennedy thing, and then they had to half-assedly throw things together in the portal with Mateos, and they've got it figured out. But if this O-line struggles, that means the offense is not going to be as good as we all hope they're going to be, and that means the team will be bad, and that means that he will lose his job. So it's like, it really, it kind of is that simple. Like, but I do think that as we get into fall camp, I don't necessarily get the feeling that O-line is like a huge issue for this team. But hey, maybe we'll be wrong. We'll figure it out. This is kind of the make or break year for that position group specifically, and of course, Sam Pittman as a head coach.
Yep. I mean, I think it's you nailed it. If the offensive line struggles this year, it's over. It's all done, because as much as we talk about players and units and teams and everything, the one unit in the one group that cannot afford to be bad. Because if they're bad this year, it's over. It's cooked. It's toast. Is the one thing that is like the beacon of hope and light is the Razorback offense and Bobby Petrino and all these guys. But it's not going to matter if you have an offensive line that stinks. Plain and simple. Which, by the way, Cody Kennedy, just wanted to look up and double check. It looks like he was reported to get relieved of his duties on December 29th. So, yeah, he was out. I don't know what he's doing now, but boy. I mean, I don't feel bad for him. I will say this real quick about Cody Kennedy. Cody Kennedy used to DM me that he listened to my podcast, my Locked On Razorbacks, all the time, which made me feel like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I think I said something critical about the offensive line, and that was it. It was just like, hey, you wasn't having it. So it's like one of those things you got to, and I know you have it too, Andrew, because I would say you got a good relationship with some of the baseball coaches and assistants and everything. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you hear one of these assistants say, man, I'll listen to your stuff, it's like, oh, man, it's cool. But, oh, well, as soon as I say something you may not like, it's going to change.
Everyone just know, if I come out next year and I'm very critical of Arkansas's catcher play, and I'm like, man, these catchers just have lost the fundamentals, I want y'all to know I'm sacrificing my relationship with Bobby Wernes. I'm just breaking it right there. But no, I didn't have a direct interaction with Cody Kennedy, but me and Curtis going into that 2023 season were very, very critical of the O-line, and we were like, man, at practice, the vibes are horrible over on that O-line room. And I remember a person from the from the communication department came up to me and Curtis and was like, hey, I would not recommend going over there by the O-lineman. I would just probably stay away. Like kind of making it clear they heard what you've been saying and they did not like it. I feel vindicated because the 2023 season played out the way it did.
Wow. I don't think you ever told me that story. That's wild.
It was a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit before our time. It was a very, because we were doing practice reports back then, and we would just go and we would walk around, and every group were like, hey man, they're running, they're feeling good. But I remember being by the O lineman, and a walk-on player responded to Cody Kennedy yelling at them and turned around and said, shut the F up. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. And this was before Pittman came and started doing his thing where he was like standing over the group, and basically, because you remember last year that was a thing where he was like just always standing with the O-line, and it was like, hey, he's taking full ownership of it. I just remember being like, dude, there's a bad vibe with this O-line room. And I definitely wasn't like, oh yeah, they're gonna have to fire the coach. Because at that point in time, Cody Kennedy had actually had, 2021, the Arkansas O-line was very, very good. One of the better ones in the country, I thought. And so it's like, it wasn't really a thing that was on our radar where we were like, oh yeah, Cody Kennedy just heading downhill. But, that was kind of the first inkling, and they were not happy about that.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're talking about old there, because what's crazy is, that's what I wanted to confirm. Cody Kennedy was a Broyles Award semifinalist.
Yeah. I think the group almost won the Joe Moore that 2021 year.
Yeah. And one thing that I heard from all of that was Brad Davis, who was the offensive line coach for Arkansas in 2020. He was that dude. And the plan was to have Cody Kennedy be the tight ends coach, and then Pittman was going to kind of groom him into becoming an offensive line coach. Well, Brad Davis, after 2020 season, jumped to LSU because he was a really good offensive line coach. And I think Pittman made a mistake, which, hey, listen, Pittman's done some really good job with hiring, but he's also made some mistakes with hiring. And that was a mistake where he just said, all right, well, we'll just kind of force the hand and put Cody Kennedy offensive line coach. And that was a disaster. Absolutely.
Was he the tight end coach at that time?
Yeah.
Like, he had gotten hired to be the tight end coach, and then they were like, let's just move him over here. That is interesting. And also, I will say, with the Eric Mateos thing, I love Eric Mateos. Like, I think he's a solid dude. I think he's a good coach. But when he got hired, I remember thinking, I was like, damn, did Pittman just scroll through his contacts and was just like, because especially when they hired Dan Enos, and Cody Kennedy and Mateos, I was like, damn, does he just scroll his contacts when he needs to hire a coach, where he's just like, I'm just gonna, whoever the last guy I called, that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, and because it was like, I think I want to say that Brad Davis was also hired at a weird time, like at LSU, where they almost had, it wasn't in the fall, I don't think. I think that was his name.
I think it was after spring practice.
Maybe that's what it was. And then
maybe during spring practice. I don't know. It was a weird time for sure.
Yeah. What did Brad Davis? I kept saying Brad Lewis, Brad Davis, which he is still the offensive line coach at LSU. How about that?
He was the only guy that stayed when Orgeron got fired. He was the only guy that stayed, I believe.
And why do you think that is? It's probably because he is a pretty good coach. and people really like him. But
by the way, since we're talking O-line, before we move on, since we're talking O-line now, I see this from Petrino's playbook. He says people are tripping. Pittman is the head coach. He isn't the offensive line coach. So, okay, I see this conversation a lot because we do the thing where we're like, if Pittman's going to be the head coach and he's the O-line guru, he was hired to be the O-line guru, he better have the best offensive line of all time. And I get that premise, but I've also kind of understood the other side where I'm like, it's not technically Pittman's responsibility. I mean, obviously he's the head coach. He's responsible for it all, but it's like, it at least makes sense why, like, hey, maybe he's not as focused. He's trying to coach the whole team. The only pushback I'll have on this Petrino's playbook is that the last 2 years, Pittman has made it clear he is taking a more personal, like, responsibility with it. He's there at practice every day. I haven't seen him this year, but like he's been there standing by the O-line groom. It's been a narrative that Pittman has pretty much come out and said, hey, I'm going to take more of a hands-on approach with this O-line.
Yeah. And there's also, to your point, giving Pittman credit where credit is due. He got so embarrassed by the offensive line performance that's why he took it upon himself. He's like, because he lets his coaches coach. And that's what makes it endearing and what makes coaches like working for him. And that's why I felt like with Petrino coming in, people were like, oh, well, is it going to be like it was at A&M? No, because Jimbo didn't want to hire anybody. He wanted to be the OC. He wanted to call plays, and it was a forced marriage. Pittman's like, hey, I'm hiring you to do a job, you do it, and I'll leave you alone. But that's where I think it got to the point to where it was so bad that it hurt Pittman's pride, where he's like, I'm never going to let that happen again, so I'm going to be hands-on with it. But real quick, also, Brad Davis got hired at LSU June 3rd in the middle of the summer. I just looked it up.
Yeah, that's
so
late.
Yeah, that's like a random time, but I think it makes you wonder if they would have hired him in the spring, because that's also crazy too. I need to go back and look, but like Brian Kelly, I know he was hired, but why are you hiring an offensive line coach? Did you have somebody leave? I don't know. There'd be a lot of questions.
I remember in the moment because it was a huge controversy, and because Pittman loved Brad Davis. He was. You want to talk about the times where Pittman his pride was hurt. He was very upset about the Brad Davis thing. I know, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Also, I guess it made sense too because Brad Davis was born and raised in LSU and in Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. And okay, so now we're getting into it because LSU had their offensive line coach James Craig was just fired. They didn't give a reason. So
just a midsummer firing.
Yeah, I'm sure it had nothing to do with any controversy surrounding it or anything. It's just fine. It's sure nothing to do with anything. Yeah, those are one of the things where it's like, okay, maybe have some questions as to why. It's one thing if like you're stepping away for health reasons or retiring, but it's like, hey, he's fired and June 3rd. We don't really know why. It's like,
but dude, that's what's so funny about the Cody Kennedy thing. I know we're talking about this a lot. I did not mean this to be a Cody Kennedy podcast, but because it worked out so well, you know what I mean? Like 2021 was his first year. They have this awesome offensive line right out the gate, and we're like, and he's like, he's a young guy. He had a good tenure at Tulane as well, and so it was like, it kind of felt like, holy cow, they pulled off the ruse of the century. Like, how did they do this?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. We'll have our heavy hitters and everything here in just a little bit, but wanted to remind everybody that one of our great sponsors here is the Freedom Boat Club of Arkansas, which we had a great time out there yesterday. It was so much fun being out there in Hot Springs at the Hot Springs Marina and telling everybody about it. It was warm. I'll give it that. Like, luckily, we got very fortunate to have it to where it was really hot before the show and after the show. But during the show, it was really cool. But we really appreciate them. Appreciate our guy, Aaron, for having us out there. And it was an awesome time. Appreciate everyone tapping in. And so one of the great things about Freedom Boat Club is we were talking about this deal that they had going on yesterday during the show about the, if you have trying to get signed up and how you could have a 50% off of your initiation fee for all those that joined. Well, here's the great thing about it, folks. They had more people join than what they thought, so they're doing it again for you. And if you want to be a part of it, all you got to do is just text the word Inside Arkansas to 501-270-6477. That's 501-270-6477. Just text the words Inside Arkansas, and you'll be able to have a chance to get 50% off your initiation fee for the members that join. So we really appreciate them and had a great time. So be sure to check it out. Again, it's Freedom Boat Club of Arkansas. A few of your chats here too. Again, because we'll have our heavy hitters, which we got some fun stuff there. I wanted to address this because Showtime Productions like, can you guys give us your top 5 head coach replacement candidates? I'm going to be honest, Showtime. We're not doing this until there's reasons to do it because it's just, there's no point. I'm sure you get it too, Andrew, but people will be like, hey, so if Pittman doesn't work out, who do you want? Listen, I'll answer it if it's off record. I just talking among like who I got, but as far as just doing it on this platform, there's just no point to that. There's no point to get into this or to what happens, because who knows? It could be all for naught. But if it seems inevitable, if it looks like it's going to be the case, or if it is the case, then we can dive into that. But right now, it just doesn't seem reasonable to do that. So.
Yeah, make no mistake. If there is a coaching search at the University of Arkansas, we are going to cover it. Like we're not just going to dip out and be like, all right, yeah, we'll let you know when the coach is hired. Like, we're going to talk about it then. I think it's kind of like, it's very disrespectful to start doing this before the season even starts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of disrespectful to do it before he's fired. But and listen, we all have our ideas. But I will say, another reason why it's pointless to talk about it now. The candidates that you may have in your mind now may be completely different in 3 months, in 5 months. Who knows? Like, there's just things that change and people become available. New candidates emerge. We all kind of have to figure out what we can make happen and what's realistic. But there will be plenty of time for that. But I think that's a bad omen, And it's like to be doing the head coach hot board in August.
Yeah. Well, it'd be the same thing even if he wasn't on the hot seat. Like, if somebody said, "Hey, who's the replacements you got for John Calipari?" It's like, I don't know. Even then, I'd be like, it doesn't matter because we don't know what the situation looks like. But also, too, the people that want to know that, they say if somebody's saying Rhett Lashley right now, which, okay, whatever. Rhett Lashley. What if Rhett Lashley goes 4-8 this year? I guarantee you at the end of the year, you're like, what is it? So we could talk about Rhett Lashley being the replacement all day long. But if he goes 4-8, it's going to change everyone's tune. You're like, I don't know if we want to go down that route. So that's it. Just things could change. Let's just wait until things transpire, and then we can get into it. There'll be plenty of time for that. A few more here too. Bass in the Ozarks says, "Hey, inside Arkansas, who's the most important player on Arkansas besides Taylon Green?" I mean,
I would have to go in that. It'd have to be someone in that D-line, honestly, that we've been talking about a lot today, just because there's more pressure on them to be good. But I'm going to stick with the offense, though, and I'm going to say Omega Blake.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of guys at receiver that, we're interested to see. Maybe they can do some things. Omega Blake is kind of the one that has a track record coming off the year he had at Charlotte that you're like, hey, this guy could be a big-time go-to playmaker. It seems like he's kind of evolved into being that guy in camp. I think there's a lot of pressure on him to kind of lead that receiver room. So I'll go with him.
Yeah. I'll go with something boring, just to be honest. I'm going to go with Corey Robinson. The reason being is because at that tackle spot, man, he has been the player that when you added, you knew he was going to be a starter. And he's also been the player that we haven't heard much about. And it's one of those it's a good thing that we haven't, because he's just been solid and he's been doing his job. So, you don't want to lose your blindside tackle for anything like that. And he's been experienced. So yeah, you could do that. But I think the Omega Blake one is definitely a good one as well. Kingsley says, if you're expecting a first-time head coach to be perfect in situational football, your expectation is too high. We're getting to a point over the last 2 years where that can be legitimately expected. For sure, Kingsley. And that was my thing with Pittman is it's one thing when you first come in. And also, too, that was one of the reasons why, and you remember this, Andrew, why he hired Barry Odom, obviously because of a great defensive coach, but because he had been a head coach. And again, another thing I want to give Pittman credit for, he didn't walk in where he's like, I'm just going to get a bunch of yes men. He's like, I am new at this. I need help. So I'm going to go because most head coaches would have too big of an ego to do something like that. But he's done that. And if you think about it, every offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator that he's had on the team at once, almost all of them, if not all of them, have been a head coach at a major level at some point. So that's also big to be able to help him out. But at this point in time, yeah, there's no more excuses of game management or anything like this. You should know what to do. You should know how to do it, and you should know when to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point in terms of the ego thing. I also think, honestly, since we're in the mood of giving Sam Pittman some credit, I think if you look at his tenure overall, when you're a head coach in any level or any sport, basically your job, it's the whack-a-mole. There's things, there's issues that arise, and you got to hit it. And then you got to fix this. And, our linebackers suck? All right, we got to fill up that room. Oh, our DBs are bad? All right, we got to fill up that room. And, our O-line sucks? Let's fire the coach. Like, you kind of have to constantly deal with issues. And, of course, game management's a part of that. And Sam Pittman has never had this notion that he's the solution to everything. And I think he's very good at, okay, we have an issue here. How can we fix it? And let's just see what we can do. And if you look at his, there's always new issues that pop up. And I think O-line this year, again, that's why there's so much pressure, because if the O-line doesn't improve this year, that's going to be kind of the undoing of this whole thing. They have been pretty good about, okay, well, there's something going on. Let's try and fix it here. Game management, I don't know if there's really something you can do to fix that, but I don't think it's a coincidence that when Barry Odom stopped being on the staff, they seem to get worse in that department. Like the 2023 season was probably the worst year Sam Pittman had from a game management standpoint, and it was the first year he was without Barry Odom. And so we'll see. I mean, now he's had a couple of years. We'll see if he's maybe made some corrections there, if he's going to do things differently. Because I'm with you, John. I think there's been some moments throughout his tenure that they've actually done some things. I'm like, hey, that's actually good. But clock management, I could rant about clock management all day. It drives me nuts. Even when I'm watching NFL games, it drives me nuts watching the games, and it's easy to do that from your couch. But Arkansas has not been a strength of theirs by any means.
Yeah, you should talk to my buddy Devin that we know. His biggest pet peeve and what he will lose his mind over is if a coach takes a timeout in the third quarter. He's like, there is zero excuse ever to take a timeout in the third quarter, ever. It's like you need to have all those timeouts at the end of games no matter what.
You know what I hate, John? When it's 3rd and 9 and the game clock the play clock is running down, and all of a sudden you call a timeout so you don't get the delay of game. And it's like, is the difference between 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 14 really that drastic that we got to use one of our 3 timeouts for the half? Because I'm with you. I think the third quarter, it's like, unless there's someone dying on the field, like we really don't need to call a timeout.
Yeah, because I don't care what the situation calls for. There is no situation that is so crucial that you got to make sure you have your ducks in a row to use a timeout in the third quarter, because there's so much time left. Like there's just no excuse for it. So, but speaking of, Hogs slops over here saying, John, I do appreciate you giving Pittman some credit these days. It's easy to crap all over him, so it's nice to hear some good stuff about him. Listen, we keep saying this, and I know that people are going to have their opinions. I'm not here to get after the chat. I'm just saying one thing that we pride ourselves in is that we are consistent when it comes to calling spades spades. Like if it's good, it's good. If it's got bad, it's bad. We don't carry water. We don't just hate for hate. I think you could say there's a lot of things. I just gave a compliment to Chad Morris, for crying out loud, about how good he is at recruiting. And it's like you can do both. It can happen that way. But I also like this from the Peaks, where he said, love y'all's show, but y'all are drinking too much Kool-Aid pertaining to Sam. Love the dude, but he's not a head coach. Well, here's the thing, Peaks. You're a great chatter, so I'm not like coming down on you. I'm just saying, if this is what you consider drinking the Kool-Aid of us talking about Sam Pittman, and all of us here on this show still believing that he is going to more than likely have a losing record in the season this year, I don't know, like, what type of Kool-Aid is that? That is knockoff sugar-free Kool-Aid, because there's none of that going on. You can once again say that, because if everything was bad everywhere, you'd go 0-12. But there's still some things that you look at to be like, okay, well, this is good and we've liked this, but it doesn't mean, like, we're not sitting here trying to convince people that, people that think Sam Pittman's not a good coach, you guys are wrong and stupid. Let me tell you why we're right. That is not what this is at all.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when last season ended, I don't know. I don't remember how I worded it, but like, I pretty much advocated for them firing Sam Pittman. Like, I pretty much put my flag in that stance of like, hey, I think it's time for a change, time to do a mutual parting of ways or whatever. And I said, even in that moment, that Sam Pittman's tenure to that point had been a net positive for Arkansas. I mean, he took over a 2-10 team. And so, to your point, John, like, it's not always bad. And, even if you're firing a guy, it doesn't mean that you always hated him and he always sucked. It's like, you can have a coach that does good things for you and then still need to make changes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And Sam Pittman's tenure has featured some good moments. I mean, they went 9-4 that for, in 2021, like, that was awesome. They've had some great players come through, had guys get drafted. Like, there's been some good things, but there's also been bad, and you add it all together, and he's been here for 6-7 years or whatever it is now. It's like, I think that there will be a time for them to move on, but it doesn't mean that he sucks and that we hate him and that, it was all bad. And also, if they retain him, it doesn't mean that it's all good. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it is. I think a lot of times our issues with the chat is we say things and people hear another. Yeah. Where we're just like, hey, Sam Pittman, isn't Satan, and they're like, wow, so you're saying they're going 9-3? You think they're it's like, no, it's like, I think they're gonna go 5-7, but it's like, I can still look at the tenure and we can talk about it and have discussions as a whole. It doesn't have to be this whole reactionary thing all the time.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, listen, I mean, we try to respond and look at all the chats. A lot of you, not a lot of you. Some of you are just trolls and not like the troll, and that's fine. But if it's somebody that is one of our residential chatters that actually says something like that, like Peaks, I've always liked Peaks. It's like, if he says something like that, then that's when I want to respond. And normally don't respond to the nonsense. Because again, we've got over 1 billion people watching right now, and don't want to have people thinking, that we just care about the one idiot that's saying crazy things. But if we see something, then we'll say something about it. But
yeah, John, let's focus on the other 999 million.
That's
Let's focus on them, not the 1 out of a billion.
Yeah, that's right. Focus on the positives, not the negatives. We'll get to our heavy hitters real quick though. But I like this from Heartbroken Heart. It says y'all should do your record predictions, and no one will call y'all Kool-Aid drinkers. Well, we are going to do our predictions, and it'll happen closer to the season. And I have a feeling because last year I was ever the optimist of saying 7-5. Curtis was the hater at 5-7. And then Andrew was the one that was right at 6-6. So I'm sure I have a feeling it'll probably be something similar. I think one of us or two of us are going to have the same record prediction. I don't think we're all three going to have different ones, but I don't also think that it's going to be some sort of major gap between what we end up saying.
Well, that's what's funny. I think sports fans in general, they are very protective over this idea of if we are told to expect something, we better get it. Mm-hmm. And if someone's got to pay and someone's got to be blamed. And so I think sports fans are always on the defensive about that, which is funny about last football season. Because like you said, we all had our record predictions. They were within a game, and one of us, the genius of the group, had it right. We were right there on it. We were pretty much dead on about what to expect from this football team. And the whole time we were getting yelled at by fans about, hey, you're too negative. You're too positive. You're too negative. You're too positive. It's or we're just talking about this very nuanced situation, very complex situation, a 150 player team football team. It's there's just a lot, but it's I don't think that we have this track record of selling something that isn't real or telling you to expect something crazy that you're never going to get. And I think our record predictions, we'll let people decide then, and then we'll see how it plays out. But it's I think a lot of times, sometimes we just have conversations, and we're having a conversation about O-line or D-line or whatever, and people hear it and they're like, wait, so y'all think the team sucks? Or you think this? It's we're really just talking about, a specific thing here. It's really not that deep.
Also, real quick, just peeks because he followed up. He says, look, I want us to be a good team, no doubt. Been a Hawk fan my whole life. I'm just saying it feels like the same song and dance as every year. Try not to get my hopes up. I want us to win every game. And that's fine, Peaks. I totally agree and totally get that. That's I agree that same song and dance. And I agree that there's a lot of similarities. But until the season, but what can you do? Sam Pittman's your head coach right now, and you got this season. You got to play it out. You play the cards that you're dealt, and we'll go from there if something changes. But that's the way it is.
My last question for Peaks, and I appreciate Peaks because he's been around for a while. He knows us. He's one of our guys. What song and dance is it that we're doing right now that we did last year? You know what I mean? Because I think last year we had our concerns and we went through all the position groups and we talked about it. And again, some of it turned age better than others, but it's I don't know what song and dance we did last fall camp that was hyping up anything or saying they're going to be horrible. Again, I feel like we kind of were right in that range. What song and dance are we doing this offseason that is painting some type of crazy picture? If you've been paying attention to our coverage, does it seem like we are super optimistic on the chances of Arkansas football, or does it seem like we're super negative? I feel like we're kind of right there where we were last year, honestly.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe he's talking more so of coaches. Maybe he's talking about us. I don't know, but either way.
That's fair.
Yeah. If that's the case. All right, let's go in and give into our heavy hitters presented by our friends over at HD Roofing and Construction, because we know storms can hit unexpectedly. So be sure to contact HD Roofing for your peace of mind with a free inspection, because when you choose HD Roofing, you can rely on that professionalism, top quality materials, and expert installation for all of your roofing needs. They do the best job around. So give them a call today at 501-428-0429. That's 501-428-0429. You can also check them out online at hdarkansas.com. It's HD Roofing and Construction. Okay, so for our heavy hitters, and if you got any heavy hitters, folks, jump into the chat and let us know about them. I'll go ahead and start off. Lane Kiffin, dude. I mean, I never dreamed in a million years that I would love an Ole Miss coach of any point. And honestly, I used to hate Lane Kiffin way back in the day, but I cannot help but like this guy. And what he continues to do on social media, I'm not even talking about his on the field stuff, but this guy just goes after people and does it in a very fun way, almost as a fan, almost as one of us, where basically I'll set it up this way. We'll post these tweets. Whoops, didn't want to do that. So this is a tweet that this has been reported, by the way. This isn't just some random person, that Auburn football with Hugh Freeze, they've been going through what they're going to be doing in situations. And what the storyline came out was that apparently at Auburn, Derek Nix is going to call the plays on first down. Hugh Freeze will call the plays on second down, and Kent Austin will call the plays on third down. Those are their offensive coaches as well as the head coach. And Hugh Freeze can overrule a play call at any time. They're all working together on play calling. Seems like a solid strategy, which I'm sure there's some sarcasm there. But anyway, that's what the main story was about Auburn and the play calling, which I will admit that is a little strange to kind of have it in that way. I don't know if it's common. I don't think so, but I can promise and guarantee you that at Arkansas, there is one particular person that is making the play calls, and it is not Ronnie Fouch. It's not Eric Mateos. It's not anybody like that. Colby Smith. It is Bobby Petrino. So I don't know how common it is, but either way, that came out. Everyone was having some fun with it. But then Lane Kiffin just quote tweets it. You can't see it from this, but he quote tweeted that exact tweet and says, "So does a fourth coach call fourth downs?" And has a little emoji of doing that at Auburn football. I don't know what Auburn did to Lane and Hugh, but they have been going some back and forth, whether it's the golf game or whatever. But I just love the fact that Lane is sitting here in fall camp. We're just days away, a couple weeks away from the season. And he's just like, I'm going to fire this one off. And it has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with Ole Miss. I just think this is funny. So I'm going to pop off with it. And I don't know. Again, I love it. I love the fact that he just does these things. And he's always going to be my heavy hitter. He's the only other SEC coach of any sport besides Vitello that I follow besides Arkansas coaches. And these are reasons why. So he's my heavy hitter because he just he gives no F's, as they say, when it comes to these things.
Auburn is going to be the most fascinating team in the SEC this year. I'm convinced because, listen, you look at Auburn on paper, and the offseason they had on paper is a very productive one. They brought in a lot of talent at the receiver position. They brought in a lot of talent defensively. Like they upgraded their roster, and they have, now Freeze in his third year. Jackson Arnold, we'll see if they get something. I could kind of be talked into Auburn being an 8-4, 9-3 type of team. I could also be talked into Hugh Freeze being fired in October, genuinely. And I really don't even know where I stand on it. I haven't done that much research, but reading the first down, second down, third down thing, that really gives me very fired in October vibes, big time. And to your point about Bobby Petrino, how he's just the guy that calls the plays, there's no discrepancy. There's no question of, hey, whose idea was that? No, it was Bobby's. I think that's very normal. Like you said, that's what you want, is to just have one voice there. I don't know, man. If you have four play callers, do you really have one? I also think, and tell me if I'm glazing here a little bit, when you are trying to, say you're an artist and you are trying to do your art a certain way, if a very famous, prominent artist quote tweets your art and is like, that's the idea you're going with? Interesting. That would really make you think, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right. For a play caller like Lane Kiffin to quote tweet that and be like, y'all are going to do that? That's really what you're doing? That's kind of that tells you it's a red flag of what you're doing. If someone who just calls plays is like, yo, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's a tough one. I'm sure he just, it's just a light jab, no big deal. That is fat. I've never heard of that before. 3 different play callers in one stance, not even in a drive, just in one little first and 10, in one set of downs, you have 3 different play callers. That is crazy.
Yeah. And also to that point too, which I think is a great example of someone that kind of note quote tweets it or as a say on it. It's also one of those things that I don't think anyone ever in the history of modern day college football who won at the highest level ever had something like this going on. I don't ever think Nick Saban, had his offensive coaches calling different plays on different downs even. I can almost get behind hey, when it comes to a goal line situation, maybe this, or when it comes to deciding between field goal or not, something like that. But when you're just straight up the downs, it sounds like some peewee football nonsense is what it sounds like. And that's what cracks me up about it is just okay, you're going to have first down. It's like you're out there in the backyard. First down, your all-time quarterback over here. It's funny. And that's why I'm saying I love that Lane Kiffin's just like one of us where he's like, it seems dumb. And I'm going to say something about it.
The good thing is, John, there has never been a controversy at the University of Auburn or Auburn University where play callers have disagreed over who gets the duties and, who gets to do what. Famously, never happened at Auburn, which eventually led to both coaches getting fired. This is never a thing we've seen play out before.
Totally. Yeah. But so Lane's my heavy hitter for today.
John, we were talking about Chi-Town or Chi City or Chirac, as we learned in the chat. They were saying it's called Chirac. Chicago, the city of Chicago. Everyone knows it. Everybody loves it. Y'all know the bean? You know, the beautiful big bean, the big silver thing. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love the bean. I've been a couple times to the bean. There's a great Drake song, 2:30, baby, won't you meet me by the bean? But anyways, the bean, there is now this thing called Man and Bean Coalition. And they are proclaiming, it's an organization in the city of Chicago. Their claim is that there is a full-grown man living inside the bean. There is a story that just came out yesterday or the other day from the Chicago something Times, like the main paper in Chicago. And it's because this coalition has been they've been like handing out flyers. They've been reaching out to like representatives. They've been urging the public to call, what's this guy's name? They've been urging everyone to contact Brendan Riley, who is the 42nd Ward representative that is in the area of the bean. And they're like, hey, like there's a guy in the bean, and they say he's been trapped for years. And so they've been putting out all this stuff. And here's their statement from Riley's office, the representative that's been contacted. He said, I am happy to confirm that a man has not been trapped inside Cloudgate, a.k.a. the Bean, for the past 21 years. In fact, the man was freed years ago. Further, we can neither confirm nor deny that Soldier Field is actually a flying saucer secretly relocated from Area 51 back in 2003. So he's having a little bit of fun with it. I don't know what to make of this, John. Are you in on the idea that someone could be trapped inside the Bean?
I think I always am in on funny things like this in a parody or a start, but then I actually don't really believe it. You know, it's kind of like, there used to be stuff of, someone lives in Mount St. Helen? That's the volcano. Is that what that is? Like people are like, oh yeah, there's, Elvis lives there and stuff. It's like, he's hanging out with Tupac. Like, all right. Like that's kind of fun and endearing, but when it comes to actually taking it seriously, no, I don't. It
is something, but the coalition, which by the way, they have over 20,000 followers on Instagram now, so they've got some traction there in Chicago. They posted another video after the representative statements, doubling down. They said the media finally sees us, but Big Bean is lying to you. They will, and they vow they will free the man inside the bean. So if you want to support the cause, go check out the Man and Bean Coalition on Instagram, and you can put your money towards a good cause.
There you go. Well, yeah, it sounds like something that, forget putting money towards NIL or anything like that. Just put it towards the bean.
Don't donate to Edge. Donate to the Man and Bean Coalition.
Jeez, that's wild. That's a wild story. Okay, so we'll have a few things left and get to your chats. Another thing, it's not really a heavy hitter, but I did want to kind of call out ESPN. Did you see the latest on some of the reports that they have for what they're doing for Inside the NBA? On ESPN?
I have not. I'm interested to hear about this because I'm fascinated to see how this plays out.
This is initial details, and it could be one of those things that they put out there to see what the public says and all that. But according to this, it's like Inside the NBA generally ran for 50 minutes in recent years, rarely dipping below 40-minute mark, but the 30-minute window may be a placeholder rather than an expectation. It says Inside is not currently listed as taking place the following night of a game, when the network's second doubleheader of the season is scheduled to lead into Scott Van Pelt's hosted Sports Center. It says the schedule, of course, is subject to change, blah, blah, blah. But it says after the opening week of the season, TNT's NBA studio show is not set to take place again until Christmas Day. So there is apparently reports that it could happen to where they open the season, they do it, but then because of how busy ESPN's going to be with stuff, that they won't return until after Christmas Day, which is already off. And they're trying to shorten it almost to a 30-minute window, which is just, again, all of it's already starting to go off the rails. But
I'm not thrilled about that. And I'm interested to see, have we gotten any details on Red Zone with ESPN either of like what that's going to look like? Because I'm kind of nervous about it. Like, I hope it's just basically they're just taking it and letting the same exact product. Scott Hansen did confirm that he's still hosting it and he's still the guy, which is good. We'll see. But yeah, that I think that the gentrification of Inside the NBA is coming.
Yeah, sadly, but truly, it's what happens. So do you
have another honorable mention? Heavy hitter. Well, I actually have two because Shohei Ohtani is my honorable mention. Just shout out to Shohei Ohtani. Seems like he just loves having his name in the news. I'm about to pull up a video, John. This is a real thing that aired on CBS on a local news channel in Atlanta. You know their quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been replaced.
They had a lot of words throughout practice, so I gave my words and just went a little bit too far.
Wow.
I mean, this is
wow.
This is unreal. I mean, I mean, listen, nobody likes a good joke like that. I mean, hell, Michael Penix, I loved him when he was at Washington. I even liked him when he was at Indiana, honestly. But me and my buddies, we used to always, of course, we'd be like, oh, hey, Penix is throwing well or whatever. Cannot believe that some intern at the news station, I would assume is getting fired today, but that's a tough one.
My thing is I see this, like, listen, I'm terrible with names, as everybody knows. And like, it's just one of those things where if you know it's close, it's something you got to make sure of, like with the whole Phil Steele thing and the Noah player that, you know, like, and how he spelled it. I'm like,
Noah K.
Yeah. Noah K. If you're going to do that, that's something I'm like, I'm going to triple check to make sure that that this is printed or presented correctly, because it is so close.
You think it's one of those things where, like, the brain association, it's like when you're driving a car and you glance over and look at something, all of a sudden your car starts drifting. It's like your brain is like, don't write penis, don't write penis, don't write. And it's like you've said it so many times that now it's just in your brain and you write it. You're right. That's brutal, and it just can't happen. I mean, it just cannot happen.
All right, okay. I just made me think of a joke. Were you a Family Guy, at least fan of Family Guy? Maybe old. I used to love the old Family Guy, and one of the things that just made me think of is when Peter's in an interview, one of those flashbacks, and he's like, "Where do you want to see yourself here at this company?" And you hear him inside of his mind going, "Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife," because he's looking at a picture of his family. He goes, "Doing your son," and it's just like really uncomfortable and awkward. And it's like that's kind of the same thing. He's like, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it," and then it ends up like just happening in the wrong way too. So, yeah, that's something, man. Graphics and letters and words are hard to put together sometimes to put on there. Let's see a few chats here. Again, we appreciate everybody tapping in with us, and we're going to be back and better than ever tomorrow. But the peaks, I just wonder if he said, didn't mean to step on any toes. And yes, Finch, everyone in the entire podcast just want the Hogs to be a dominant program. We're tired of the lackluster, half good football team. Absolutely. And I'm like I said, hopefully you didn't take it as us hating on you, Peaks. It's just, we want to make sure everyone understands. It's like, we're not drinking the Kool-Aid. We're not doing that. That's for other shows that if you want to hear that, but we're, again, we can be complimentary on things that are complimentary, and we can be, critical of things need to be critical. It can be a balance of both. But at the end of the day, this is what makes Razorback fans great, and every one of you in the chat and everything. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want Arkansas to win. It's just a matter of how you go about it and how you get there. That's what we disagree on, but everyone wants the same thing. So it's all good, Peaks.
Absolutely. And to the point of we all want a dominant program, one, I can confirm for you, Arkansas is not a dominant program and will not be anytime soon in football. I'll just go ahead and clear that up. But to your point, yeah, we all do want them to have success. And if there's any misconception, like, I do love Sam Pittman. I admire the guy as a person. Like, I like Sam Pittman. I want him to have success. So if anyone wants to accuse me of that, that's 100% true. But to your point, John, it's like, it really, and we weren't, I hope it didn't sound like we were like coming down on you and trying to shame you. We really just want to clarify our points, because I feel like sometimes we say things and, it gets interpreted one way, and we just want to make sure we're all on the same page of like, hey, we're cheering for Sam Pittman. We're rooting for Sam Pittman. And we think there's some things that Sam Pittman has done well. Does not mean at all that we're saying Sam Pittman is not, underachieved in some levels, and that we are not, a little bit pessimistic about how this thing might play out this season. But I think we're all on the same page. We're all a big family here.
And it's kind of like the way I put it is Sam Pittman a better coach than Chad Morris? Yes, that's 100% true. Okay. That means that there has to be things that Sam Pittman has done good or done better than Chad Morris to be that. So what are those things? And that's how you look at it. You got to take it into that consideration.
I definitely subscribe to the theory that the better than the better than Chad Morris line is, of course, adamantly like true, but also we have expired on that, where it's like that is no longer the criteria that we are basing. We're in, what is it? Is it year 7 now for Pittman?
Year 6.
1, 2, 3. It's 6. It's year 6. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why anybody, I'm sure I'm going to get hearing about this, but anybody that ever says like you're in a better position than where you were when Sam Pittman took over, and using that as some sort of like positive to support or to be okay with everything, is the stupidest, most absurd thing. Don't let anyone say that stupid stuff to you. Be like, oh, well, yeah, he took over because me and Andrew could have probably done just as good, if not better than what Chad Morris did here. So yeah, it's not exactly a high bar, but hey, 6 years ago, he was terrible. So you should just be happy it's better now than what it was then. It's like, yeah, it's like when I was sick 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, just because I was a little bit better on a Monday doesn't mean it's fine and I'm still okay. It's like, it's different, but people are just.
Well, what it does is it implies that we should wait until the program is back to that stage to fire him. You know what I mean? And that's part of what our argument was last year of why, like, hey, maybe that was time to really make a decision, is because you could end the tenure in a good spot, and good is relative, of course, but like in a better spot. I don't think we should wait until they get back to the gutter to make a change. It's kind of our stance all along, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Also, like, is there any other things I was going to bring that up. I can bring that up tomorrow because that's something I want to.
Any other hot takes from the chat? Anybody?
Yeah, I was going to see if there was any of those from there. But one of the stories I was going to bring up, I'll say for tomorrow if Curtis comes back on with us. So because I think that'd be something he'd get a kick out of. Finch said, John's still disappointed we didn't get that beatboxing in the members only after your sources told us there was a strong possibility. I don't know if I'll ever emotionally recover from that. Yeah, I guess that was one of the things I did forget about. But hey, there'll be another members only stream here soon. So.
Yeah, we ran out of time, honestly. Like, we were having too much fun, and we were like, oh, damn, we had to cut ourselves short. But we got to get back on there soon.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's crazy. When you and Curtis did it, and of course, you guys went a long time too. When you have 3 people on it, it goes a long time. It can really do it. So maybe just got to cut it down. So have a solo members, just like Andrew, you do it by yourself and just see how
it's Andrew Day on the members only stream.
It's Andrew Day. So, all right. Well, let's see. Okay, I want to just bring this up from Caden. He says, people don't realize Sam is the reason a lot of guys come. My neighbor is Quayne Prevo, and Sam is one of the main reasons he came here. Mom loves him. Sam brings in guys with his personality. Again, it's just, it's nothing bad at all, but it's a performance-based business. You got to win. You can be the greatest man that's ever existed, and I love you for it. And that's the thing. Sam Pittman, love the guy. Well, if he wasn't the Razorback head coach, I would not have any criticisms or anything bad to say. But when you're the head coach, you got to win. And if you don't win, doesn't matter how nice you are. You got to win. Plain and simple.
By the way, you think Sam Pittman was jealous of us yesterday? We were out at his stomping grounds, man, down in Hot Springs. I bet he was looking at that and he's like, man.
Mm-hmm. It's probably seeing if we were going to go by his house with the hog out front. And
you can go pick up Woody on the way there.
Yeah. Could have done that too. So yeah, I'm sure he was. But anyways, well, Andrew, any final thoughts before we roll out of here for the day?
My only final thought is that Thursday is the most underrated day of the week, and I want everyone to understand that and appreciate it. Don't let Thursday end before you realize that you're in the most underrated day of the week, and you've got a lot of things to look forward to.
There you go. No, is anything specific or just in general? Just
in general. I just feel like it doesn't get its flowers as a day of the week as much as it probably should. I think it might be number 3 over Sunday.
Yeah, maybe we should have one of these maybe as a summertime for you guys. Like, let's just power rank the days of the week.
That would be good because I think Monday is the most. I don't want to say it's the one that is overly criticized as the worst day of the week, and I think Tuesday is the worst day of the week.
I do too. I think Tuesday's pretty rough. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll do something like that. But my final thought here is just something that we're going to be promoting here at Inside Arkansas and all of our content. But we have a great partnership that we've been able to have the privilege and honor of partnering with Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Arkansas. And they have a great event coming up on August 25th this Monday, or on Monday later this month, where they're going to be having Golf for a Cause. It's their 21st annual deal where it's going to be a great cause that helps provide comfort and care for families with ill or injured children. It's more than a golf tournament. It's a chance to make a real difference. And again, they're playing at Rogers Pinnacle Country Club, which is an awesome place. So you can pick your location between that or even Pleasant Valley Country Club down there in Little Rock, which is also a great place. Spots are filling up fast. It's presented by Tyson Foods, McDonald's, and Newlyweds Foods. Breakfast and lunch are served at the events. They got different flights. So it's a great cause. It's a great event. So if any of you want to get involved, just sign up at rmhcarkansas.org/events. Just sign up there and you'll have a great chance to play a great golf course, but also for a great cause there with the Ronald McDonald's House Charities. And we appreciate their partnership so much here on the show. So, all right, well, that'll do it for us. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in Inside Arkansas Live. Be sure to subscribe to us here at Inside Arkansas for all of our Razorback content. Reminder, on Saturday, we'll have another scrimmage recap that's going to be going on. So be sure to tap in for that on the Inside Arkansas Football Show. And we'll also have some great stuff coming out each and every day. So stay with us, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that'll do it. For Andrew Ellis, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And we'll see you then.